Okay, let's try and unpack this. We're looking at, well, almost an economic chess match, aren't we? Between two global giants, India and the United States.
That's a good way to put it.
Their trade relationship, it's been, complex for years, often shaped by leaders like former President Trump and Prime Minister Modi.
Absolutely. Their policies had a huge impact.
And right at the center of it all, this tool, tariffs. It can protect or it can really provoke.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're doing a deep dive. What are tariffs, really? How have they reshaped trade between these two huge nations? And, importantly, what does it all mean for you listening?
Well, the first thing to get your head around is that tariffs, they're basically taxes.
Just taxes.
Essentially, yeah. Taxes one country puts on goods coming in from another country, the immediate impact, well, those imported things get more expensive for everyone, consumers, businesses.
Right, so higher prices.
Higher prices, exactly. But, the deeper strategy is often about protecting your own industries at home, shielding them from foreign competition, or maybe trying to fix a trade imbalance.
So it's a bit of a gamble then.
It really is. You're betting that protecting your local industries outweighs the risk of making things more expensive across the board.
And it's important to remember, I think, that both India and the U.S., historically, they've seen tariffs as a way to, boost their own economies.
Definitely. It's a tool they've both reached for.
And that desire to help out local industry, that really sets the stage for the whole dynamic we're going to explore. So let's jump forward a bit. The Trump era. His whole America First idea, it wasn't just talk, was it?
Not at all. It was a core economic strategy. He made it very clear that American economic interests came first, and he seemed perfectly willing to, well, shake up global trade to achieve that.
Shake things up is putting it mildly, maybe.
Perhaps. And this policy, it led to actual actions, tariffs on imports from lots of countries, and India was definitely caught up in that.
Like the steel and aluminum tariffs.
Exactly. Back in 2018, the U.S. imposed tariffs on imported steel and aluminum. That hit India direct. I mean, they're a pretty big exporter of both those materials. And it didn't stop there. In 2019, the Trump administration took India out of the GSP, the Generalized System of Preferences.
GSP, right. Remind us, what did that actually mean?
So the GSP program, it was essentially a special deal. It let India send certain products to the U.S. completely tariff-free. No import tax on those specific goods.
Ah, so losing that was a big deal for Indian
A
exporters.
huge deal. Took away a significant competitive edge they had.
Yeah.
And all these moves, the steel tariffs, the GSP removal, they were presented as part of this bigger trade war idea.
Okay.
The stated goals were, cutting the U.S. trade deficit. That's when you're importing more than you export.
Money flowing out.
Exactly. And also creating more jobs inside America. That was the narrative.
So the U.S. is making these big moves. But India, under Modi, they weren't just going to, take it, were they?
No, definitely not passively. Their response was pretty firm, and it came on multiple fronts.
How so?
Well, first, direct retaliation. India slapped its own tariffs on a list of U.S. products, things people would recognize.
Like what?
Things like almonds, apples, even some specific American motorcycles. So it made the impact very real for U.S. exporters.
Okay, so tit-for-tat tariffs.
Pretty much. But beyond that, Modi also launched this major initiative called Atmanirbhar Bharat,
Which means?
Self-Reliant India. It was a really strong push to boost India's own indigenous industries.
Right, the Self-Reliant India scheme.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a fundamental shift. Was the idea just to rely less on imports?
That was a huge part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Encouraging Indian companies to produce more locally, depend less on foreign goods. The ultimate aim was, making India a self-sufficient economy.
Were there specific challenges with that? I imagine some sectors found it harder than others.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great point. I mean, the idea was strong, but sectors that really depended heavily on imported parts, think electronics, maybe some advanced manufacturing, they definitely faced short-term hurdles making that switch.
Okay.
But, more traditional industries, perhaps they saw more immediate domestic growth. What's really interesting, though, is that even with this big push for self-reliance, Modi seemed to understand that India couldn't really thrive long-term by just cutting itself off from the world.
Ah, so promoting self-reliance, but stopping short of total isolationism.
Yeah.
That sounds like a tricky balance to strike.
Exactly. A very complex stance.
Were there debates inside India about that? Like how far to go with protectionism versus staying globally engaged?
Oh, I'm sure there were. You certainly had voices advocating for maybe stronger walls, more protection, and others pushing for faster integration into the global economy.
So how did they manage that tension?
Well, it seems the strategy was sort of build up the domestic base first, make India stronger internally, then re-engage more assertively on the global stage. So even while these US-India tariffs were a major sticking point, India was still actively pursuing other trade deals, enhancing partnerships elsewhere. It shows a more nuanced approach than just the simple trade war headline sometimes suggested.
That makes sense. Okay, so that gives us the background. Fast forward to now. Where do things stand today between Delhi and Washington on this? How's that tariff dance looking?
It's still pretty complicated, let's put it that way.
Still complicated.
Yeah. I mean, the Biden administration has, eased off some of the more extreme protectionist measures from the Trump era. There's been some relief.
Okay.
But the whole issue of tariffs, it's definitely still active. It hasn't got away. And those talks about a free trade agreement, an FTA between India and the U.S.
Yes. Are they progressing?
They're ongoing, but progress is notoriously slow. Painfully slow, some might say.
Right, so friction remains. But you mentioned earlier there's also this shared understanding, maybe driven by China's influence. How does that play in?
Ah, yes. That's a really crucial factor now. Both Washington and Delhi, they seem to deeply understand they need to cooperate more, especially with China becoming more assertive globally.
So geopolitics pushes them together, even if trade pulls them apart sometimes.
That's a very good way to put it. That shared strategic view, particularly regarding China, often keeps them talking, even when they disagree strongly on other things.
Like intellectual property or market access.
Exactly. Those are still major sticking points. Things like, how do you protect patents for medicines or software designs? How easy is it for American companies to sell in India or Indian companies to sell in the U.S.? These are tough issues.
But the China factor provides a kind of floor, prevents a total breakdown.
It often seems that way. It doesn't magically solve the disagreements, but it creates a strong incentive to keep the channels open and keep working on things. It really signals that both countries' trade strategies are going to keep evolving.
And that evolution has global consequences, right? It's not just about these two countries.
Oh, absolutely not. That's the bigger picture here.
How do these bilateral tariff issues ripple outwards? Do they actually rewire global supply chain?
They certainly can. The effects aren't just contained between India and the U.S. Think about all the other countries, the multinational companies whose trade depends on them.
Right.
When tariffs go up or trade rules change, it forces adjustments everywhere. Global supply chains might shift. Industries might have to find new suppliers, maybe more expensive ones. It creates uncertainty and often increases costs.
Can you give an example? Which sectors feel this most?
Well, think about agriculture, like those almonds and apples we mentioned. Or technology, where components cross borders multiple times. Construction relies heavily on materials like steel.
Okay.
In all these areas, and more, India and the U.S. are such major players that their trade policies inevitably create waves that are felt right across the global economy.
Okay, so we've taken quite a deep dive today. We've looked at this complex tariff dance between India and the U.S., how leaders like Trump and Modi really shaped it, and how the ripples are still spreading globally.
It's certainly a dynamic situation.
It really is. So, thinking about that bigger picture, did it seem to you that these kinds of tariff policies, in the long run, do they genuinely end up creating lasting opportunities for local industries? Or do they mostly just become persistent headaches for consumers and traders around the world? Something to think about.